in a seated position as always, just to kind of tune into how our bodies are feeling today. So you can sit however you like. Anything that allows you to find a nice straight spine. And you can kind of feel your way into that. Your head should be balanced on top of your spine, and all of that's vertically stacked on top of your pelvis, your hips. And so it should feel tall and straight and also relaxed. So once you kind of find that alignment, if you're comfortable with your eyes closed, you can close your eyes. Take a deep breath in through your nose. And let's just sigh it out of our mouths. Just let your breathing be normal initially while you check in with all of your body parts. Anything that might feel a little stiff or even achy, and anything that feels strong and pliable and flexible. All the parts that are working beautifully, we want to acknowledge them too. And then we'll start breathing on purpose. So Ujjayi breathing, that nice restricted throat that gives kind of a whisper sigh sound all through the nose. Begin a nice deep slow Ujjayi breath. Our Ujjayi breathing kind of calms the central nervous system and affords us the opportunity to take a look at our thought patterns. So check in with the speed and quality of your thoughts right now. We can check in with our emotions, just observe them. And also just notice what your energy is like right now. And then based on all of that, let's set our intention for practice today. So your intention is very personal. We bring the palms together in front of our hearts. And as always, we try and be as clear and concise as possible when we set our intention for our practice, for our day, so that we can be very clear about our needs and then simply allow them to be fulfilled. So once you're clear on your intention, take a deep breath in. And another sigh through the mouth. Release your arms, roll your shoulders back a couple of times. And we'll come to standing at the front of the mat in Tadasana, mountain pose. So this morning we're going to be working on opening up the front of the hips. Even if you have a pretty active lifestyle or active career, most of us as modern humans sit too much. We have a tendency to shorten up in the front of the hips. And even if you're one of the few people who are blessed to have really open front hips, it's also where we store some of our overflow day-to-day stress. So it's a good thing to keep it loosened up. So that's what we're going to be working with this morning. So find your nice aligned spine in your standing position. Let your feet root down. Let your heart lift. Let your shoulders relax. Head is balanced on top of the spine. Just take a breath here. And then bring palms together in front of your heart. And then breathe in. Reach the arms up. Spread your fingers. Lift your heart. Take a couple of breaths here. Urdhva Hastasana. Just reaching for the sky. Neurologically, this is the posture of joy. And then on your next exhale, you're going to bend your knees as you fold forward. Relax your neck and just hang for a couple of breaths in ragdoll. So even though things may get a little bit intense in our practice, we always want to start slow. We ease into everything. There's no rush. Take a couple of breaths here. And then go ahead and plant the hands or fingertips right beside your feet. It depends on your body whether you begin to straighten the legs or not, but we're going to look up halfway. Lengthen the spine, pull the chest forward. And then exhale and fold all the way back down. Step back with your left leg. Nice big long step back, and just take a few breaths in your lunge here. Making sure that your right shin is vertical, of course, and just remembering what our emphasis is this morning for our class. So knowing that you're going to be working the front of the hips, try not to just hang out here. Let's start exploring what we might be feeling in that area. So as you're here, you're trying to allow your pelvis to kind of drop a little more towards the mat, while at the same time, perhaps lifting through the back of the left knee. In other words, straightening your left leg, but allowing the hips to sink. So you're probably feeling in the back of your right thigh, but you should feel in the front of the left hip as well. And it should be somewhat subtle. Take one more breath. And then we're going to go ahead and drop the left knee down. Let's just extend our right leg. Flex the ankle and toes. Lift the chest and pull forward. So we're not going to neglect our hamstrings. You should be feeling this in the back of the right thigh, right calf. If you flex your ankle and toes, you'll get it even more. Just take a breath here. And then we'll bend the right knee, and I'd like you to bring both hands to the top of your right thigh. So in order to really open up the front of the hip, we have to contract the back of the hip. So your left glute, and particularly right at the base of your left glute, you're kind of tightening that. So you're tilting your pelvis back, which means you're pushing your pubic bone forward. Then you start to let the hips move forward, kind of tucking your tailbone under until you feel that stretch on the front of your left thigh. We're going to just refine that for a moment. I want you to make sure you're really feeling it. Take another breath. Then just your left hand is going to reach up. Now we can kind of use this to sort of dial in our stretch, right? So we can lean back a little bit. We can lean a little to the right. We can kind of do a combination of. So just explore. You're trying to find more sensation on the front of the left hip, but it should be appropriate. So we're not really warm yet. So just keep it at a bearable level. Take one more breath. Good. Bring both hands down to the mat. Scoot your right foot forward 3 or 4 scooches, farther than you think you should. And then let's raise both arms up and overhead. Tuck the tailbone under, lift the chest, and let the hips move forward again. Take a couple of breaths here. Remember, you want to try and keep the muscles at the base of your left buttock really contracted. We're going to bring both hands down to the inside of the right foot. So I already had to scooch it forward. Keep it where it is. Try and keep your right knee hugging in towards your upper body. And just see if maybe you can come onto your left forearm. You're welcome to use a block if you need to. If you can get the left forearm down, maybe the right. And then just see if you can release the hips forward a little bit more. Again, we're still working that front left hip. If your right hamstring is pretty tight, that might prevent you at this point from getting into the front of the left hip. It's okay. We're warming up. Take another breath. And then from here, we'll just come back out onto the hands. Step the right leg back to plank position. Remember, you may modify or skip any vinyasa you need to. But for the moment, just hold plank if you're able. We want our core engaged. And then this first time down, we're going to drop down knees, chest, and chin. Untuck the toes. And I want you to strongly push your pubic bone into the mat, right? So that activates those gluteal muscles a little bit. And just lift up into a small baby cobra. Really pushing pubic bone into the mat and kind of pulling the heart forward. Gives you a little bit of front hip opening as well as heart opening. Then turn your toes under, downward facing dog. You know, I always like to offer you the opportunity to move a little bit on your first down dog if you need to. You can pedal the feet or do anything you need to do. And then once you do it, Really commit to a lengthened spine and a stillness in your down dog. Fingers are spread, palms are flat. Space between the shoulder blades, neck is relaxed. Hips are reaching up and back, heels are reaching down. And then we'll take a big step forward with our left foot and just hold the lunge. So just like we did when we had our right foot forward, let's just take a moment to kind of explore what's going on in the front of the right hip. We are very rarely symmetrical. So it's good to see what's happening on either side. Once you kind of get comfortable in your lunge, allow the pelvis to just start to get a little heavier and the back of the right knee to get a little lighter. In other words, hips are dropping towards the mat while the right leg is straightening. We're just seeing if we can get into some sensation in the front of the right hip. And then drop your right knee down. Extend your left leg. We don't want to neglect those hamstrings. Once you get your left leg as straight as you comfortably can, dorsiflex the ankle and foot. Pull your chest forward. So we're trying to lengthen the spine here. And then bend your left knee and bring both hands to the top of the left thigh. So let's do that posterior tilt of the pelvis, right? It's like tucking the tailbone under. Sink the hips forward until you start to feel the front of your right thigh, right hip. Just kind of take a moment, get that in, and then take the right arm up, and we kind of refine our sensation. Maybe reaching back a little bit, maybe leaning to the left, maybe some kind of combination of the two. Good. Bring the hands down. Scoot your left foot forward, those few scooches. Remember, you want that really long step. Now we're going to take both arms up and overhead. Tuck the tailbone under, sink your hips forward again. So you're just letting your body weight move forward, but we're really actively tightening the muscles at the base of that right buttock. So you should be feeling more now in the front of your right hip. And then we're going to bring both hands down inside the left foot. Try and keep your left knee hugging in towards your torso if you can. Coming onto the right forearm, you're welcome to use a block if you need to. Maybe getting all the way down onto the left forearm. So if you can, you're trying to get some sensation in the front of the right hip. If your hamstrings are tight, you might be feeling your left hamstring more. Just take a few breaths. Come back up onto your hands, and we're going to step forward now to our standing forward bend. So let's just pause for a moment here in Uttanasana. If you need to bend the knees a little bit, please do think about tipping your pelvis forward now. It's the opposite action of what we've been doing. So your standing forward bend is a counter pose to all of your other poses so far. Take one more breath here. In other words, you're shortening what we've been lengthening. And then take a big inhale. Reach the arms up and overhead. Stretch. And exhale. Bring your palms together in front of your heart. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, fold all the way forward. Fingertips down and keep them down as you look up and lengthen. And then fold all the way forward. This time we're going to step back with our right foot. So we have a left foot forward lunge. It's a nice long lunge. Just kind of take a moment, notice how things are feeling. Front of the right hip might be a little bit looser the second time through. If you can, we're going to do this series with the knee off the ground, but remember you can always modify and drop your right knee down. Keeping your hands on either side of the left foot, gaze forward, and begin to straighten your left leg. We're gonna be doing all the same things that we did the first time through, but with the knee up if possible. So we're just saying hello a little louder to our left hamstring. Take one more breath here. And then go ahead and bend your left knee. And if you can, hands to the top of the left thigh. Activate the muscles at the base of your right glute. Let your hips drop until you start to feel that on the front of your right hip. Just take the right arm up. And again, we're going to kind of dial it in. See if you can get a little bit more sensation here. Right arm reaches either back or to the left or both. And then bring your right hand down to the mat. Let your left hand meet it on the inside of your left foot. Maybe you can come down onto your right forearm. Maybe you can get both of them. If you can keep your right leg pretty straight here and keep your pelvis tilted back, this time through, you should be really feeling this on the front of your right hip. Take a couple breaths. Come back up onto your hands and step your left leg back to plank. You may take the vinyasa of your choice. Remember, honor your body this morning. Do whatever's best for you. If you're doing a traditional vinyasa, when you get to cobra or upward facing dog or even sphinx, if you're doing it, pay attention to the front of the hips. So we're keeping the pubic bone pressing forward while the spine lengthens to maybe get a little bit of opening on the front of the hips. And then downward facing dog. Always, we take advantage of the opportunity in downward facing dog to lengthen the spine. Step forward with your right foot. Again, just seeing if you can really engage left glute, straighten left leg, and let the hips drop. So seeing if the second deep lunge feels a little different than the first one. And then if you can, keeping your hands on either side of the right leg, you begin to straighten it. Remember, it's okay if your right leg doesn't straighten all the way. We're just trying to get sensation in the right hamstring. If you're feeling it, it's good. And then bend your right knee. Remember, drop the left knee if you need to. Otherwise, both hands to the top of the right thigh. We'll tuck our tailbone under, let the hips drop till we start to feel this in the front of the left hip. And then just take your left arm up and start refining your sensation. Lean back or to the right or both. Left hand comes down inside that right foot. The right hand joins it. Maybe you come onto your left forearm. Maybe you get them both down. You try and keep your left leg straight. Try and keep muscles at the base of the left glute engaged. Now you should be feeling it on front of that left hip. Come back up onto your hands. Step forward to your standing forward bend. Remember, just take an extra breath or two here. Make sure your pelvis is actually tipping forward. So another way to think of that is imagine that you're trying to point your tailbone straight up towards the ceiling. And if you need to bend your knees to get that, then do it. Big inhale, arms up. Exhale, palms together in front of the heart. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, fold forward, standing forward bend. Inhale, look up halfway. Exhale, back down. Step back with your left foot, so you've got a right foot forward lunge. Hold the lunge for a moment. Every time we come into this, we just see, are we making any progress? Do things feel a little different, or is the lunge a little deeper? And then we're gonna drop the left knee. So you're gonna bring the arms up and overhead, tuck your tailbone under, let the hips move forward again. We've already been here once today, right? Now, it just depends on your knees and your body, so please don't do anything that's not good for you. First thing you're gonna do is just bring your left hand to the mat, tuck your tailbone under, let the hips move forward, start to rotate, right hand behind you. Maybe this is all you're gonna get this morning and it's enough. If you can, your left knee bends and you just grab that left foot. Keep your tailbone tucked under, keep the hips moving forward. Usually this is enough to get it on the front of the hip. Now, if you want more in the thigh, you can kind of pull on your foot. So you just decide how much is enough, how much is too much. Don't forget to breathe. You always want the breath deep and even and fluid. Release your foot, both hands to the top of the right thigh. Recommit to tilting your pelvis backward and sink the hips forward again. Now you decide, again, if that did not work well for your knee and you had to keep your knee down, you'll take your left arm up like we did earlier and just kind of dial the stretch in. If it felt okay, now your left hand is going to reach back and get that left foot. And this time we are going to pull on the leg a little bit. Tuck the tailbone, sink the hips forward, and start to pull your left foot towards the outside edge of your left hip. Take a couple of breaths here. And if you're feeling like you want to be a little more aesthetically pleasing, you're welcome to take your right arm up towards the ceiling. Release that left leg down if you've got it. Hands to the mat, step back, take the vinyasa of your choice. Remember to follow your breath. Remember to be mindful of the front of the hips and your heart opener. And lengthen your spine in downward facing dog. From here, we step the left foot forward. Again, just checking in. Here we are in our lunge again. How's it feeling on the right side? Always staying very attentive to what we feel. Drop your right knee down. Arms come up and overhead. Pelvis tilts back, and we let the hips move forward again. Taking right hand to the mat, keeping right glute engaged. Left arm reaches behind us. Again, this might be enough for you, and that's fine. If you can, you bend the right knee. You put the right foot into the left hand. You keep tucking the tailbone under and letting the hips move towards the mat. Release your right foot back down. Hands on top of the left thigh. Again, tilt the pelvis back, move the hips forward, recommit to that. And then if you can, right arm reaches behind you and you grab the right foot. This time we actually are pulling on the leg a little bit, letting the hips move forward. If you like, you can take your left arm up. Release your right foot down. Step forward to standing forward bend. Remember, this is your counter pose. Take a couple of extra breaths here. So you get to shorten up all the stuff you were just lengthening. And then inhale, reach the arms up. And exhale, palms together in front of the heart. So we're going to inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, go ahead and fold forward into your forward bend. Come up halfway, heart pulls forward. Exhale, heart sinks back towards the thighs. Step back with your left foot. And this time we're going to spin the heel flat. If you need to slightly widen your stance, go for it. We're going to come up into warrior one. So right knee stays bent. As much as possible, you want to try and get the hips to rotate forward. so that they're squared off at the front of the mat. If you can, your left heel is flat and your left leg is straight. Then, even harder, we try and tuck the tailbone under. Lift the arms up and overhead. Let the pelvis start to drop. So again, we're trying to get into the front of that left hip. Right hand's gonna come to the thigh. We're gonna do like we did in the lunges. Try and kind of dial in this psoas stretch in warrior one. And then go ahead and come on up. Interlace your fingers behind your back. Let's go ahead and straighten the right leg. Make sure your hips are rotated forward and lengthen out over your right leg. So you get a little hamstring stretch again. Take a couple of breaths. Bring your hands down to the mat. You're going to swivel onto your left toes. Drop your left knee down. Walk your right foot over to the left side of the mat. And this is how you're going to just transition into one leg king pigeon. But I want you to stay up on your hands today. So you just make sure your right knee is slightly outside the torso to the right. Scooch that left leg back until you start to feel your right glute. Pause for a moment. So we're going to let that right glute kind of adjust to what's happening here. And then bring your left hand dead center into the middle of the mat. That's your center of gravity. Just like we did when we were in a lunge, we're going to reach our right arm behind us. Maybe you can bend your left knee and get your left foot again. Hips are sinking. Left foot is pulling towards right buttock as you look over your right shoulder. Try and keep your tailbone tucked under here. Take a couple of breaths. And then release the leg, both hands to the mat. If you need to, slide the left knee back. Right hand comes to the center of the mat. Left hand reaches behind you. Maybe you can get the left foot in the left hand. And again, we're pulling that left foot towards the outside edge of our left hip. Keeping left glute tight, heart lifted. Take one more breath. Release out. Move straight into downward facing dog, which should feel really good. Press your hips back and stretch. Take your left leg up in the air, bend the knee, roll that left hip open. So this is a gentle front hip opener. If you'll reach your left knee away from the left armpit, you're trying to create length. And then let the weight of your left foot just kind of pull you open. Take one more breath if you can. Left foot comes down, downward facing dog again. And then we'll just shift into plank and flow through our vinyasa. Now, after you've had a moment to really lengthen out in your downward facing dog, take your left foot forward, spin the right heel flat, adjust your stance if you need to. We're coming up into warrior one here. So your left knee is bent, arms are up and overhead. You're trying to get right heel flat, right leg straight, tailbone tucks, hips drop until you feel this on the front of your right hip. So find that sensation. And then left hand to the left thigh and see if you can just increase an appropriate amount of sensation in your right front hip. So just kind of explore what movement makes this even better. And then we'll come up from that, interlace the fingers behind the back. Straighten the left leg. Lengthen out over your left thigh. Try and keep those hips aligned so they're kind of squared off at the front of the mat. So left hamstring stretch. And then you can just bend your left knee. You can bring your hands down to the mat, swivel onto the right toes, drop your right knee down. Walk the left foot over to the right side of the mat, drop your left knee, slide your right leg back. So again, coming into one leg king pigeon, but we're gonna stay up on the hands today. Taking a few breaths to allow your left glute to adjust. Making sure right leg is slid back an appropriate amount since we're working in front of the hips. And then we allow the right hand to come to the center of the mat. The left arm reaches behind us. Remember, that might be enough for you. It's fine. Just keep your right glute tightened. Bend your right knee. Reach back with your left hand if you can. Grab the foot, and this time you're trying to bring your right foot towards your left buttock. You want to keep your tailbone tucked under and your torso vertical. Release the right foot down. If you need to, you can slide your right leg back. Now we're going to take the left hand to the center of the mat. The right arm is going to reach back. Maybe you can get your right foot into your right hand. And if possible, you're going to start pulling your right foot towards the outside edge of your right hip, keeping your tailbone tucked under. Breathe. And release out. Straight into downward facing dog. And then we'll take the right leg up in the air, bend the knee, and let the hip bone roll open. So remember, you're trying to lengthen the whole right side of your torso and allow the weight of that right foot to create some opening in the front of the right hip. Right foot comes back down. Downward facing dog, and then go ahead and shift into plank and take your vinyasa. From this downward facing dog, you can either walk or jump forward to a standing forward bend. Pause for a moment, remembering this is your counter pose, so just really enjoy this for a moment. And then inhale, reach the arms up. And exhale, bring your palms together in front of your heart. So I know last week we did a lot of dancer pose variations. You get to use everything you learned about that as we move into our balance today. So dancer pose. If you can, it's best to do it with an open palm so that the head of the shoulder can roll open. But this morning, since the emphasis is on the front of the hips, if you need to do it with an outer foot grab, that's fine. We're gonna stand on the right foot first, and honestly today, I don't care if you lean into it, the aesthetics are far less important than the sensation. So when you grab your left foot, preferably on the big toe side, but if necessary, on the little toe side, go ahead and raise the right arm up. The first thing I want you to do is make sure your thighs are parallel, so don't let that left knee wing out to the side. Then I want you to tuck your tailbone under, so you're tilting the pelvis back. You're gonna feel your glutes tighten. Stay upright as you pull the leg behind you until you start to feel the front of your left hip stretch. Then and only then should you begin leaning into it. Come all the way back up, release out. Roll the shoulders back if you need to, take a breath, and we'll do the other side. Stand on your left foot. Right hand grabs right foot, preferably from the inside, but it's fine today if you need to do from the outside. And then again, I want the thighs to come parallel, so you don't want your right leg way out to the right. Tuck your tailbone under, lift your chest, pull the leg back. Then you can start to lean into it. Remember, it's always about the sensation. And then come all the way back up. Feet together, palms together. Inhale, reach up, stretch up. Exhale, fold forward. Pause and you're standing forward bend. Focus on getting your pelvis to tip forward. It's your counter pose right now. Tailbone pointing up towards the ceiling, and then inhale, look up and lengthen your spine. Exhale, back down. You can either step or walk back to plank and flow through your final vinyasa. I'd like you to linger either at cobra or upward facing dog. Taking a moment to really kind of bring your focus to the front of the hips. And then lengthen your spine in downward facing dog. Push the hips as far up and back as you can. Sink your heels down. Take a couple of breaths. And then you can either walk or jump forward and have a seat. And we'll just take a moment in Dandasana, staff pose, to kind of take stock. So make sure you're on your sit bones. And again, you want that straight, aligned spine. Legs should be active here. Just take a moment, kind of check in. Check in with your body, with your breath, your thoughts, your emotions, your energy, and perhaps most importantly, your intention. And then I want you to actually put your hands on your hip bones. Imagine that you can push the front hip bones forward, that you can feel your tailbone starting to poke behind you. Once you feel like your pelvis tilts a little bit, then go ahead and let your hands gently slide onto your legs or feet, shoulders staying back down the back, and kind of pull your chest forward. So in Paschimottanasana, our seated forward bend, we still want to make sure that the pelvis is tilting forward. It can be a little more challenging since it's connected to the floor right now. So just be mindful. Take another breath here. And come on up from that. We're going to keep the left leg straight. Bring the right foot all the way across the left thigh. Right foot nice and flat. Keep your left leg active. We're just going to do a seated twist here. So lifting up through the crown of the head for very straight spine. Right hand comes behind you. You can either just hug your right knee or you can bring your left elbow outside of it. We want spine straight, shoulders relaxed, and we're rotating to look over the right shoulder. You might be able to feel a little bit of this in your right outer hip, which is nice. Again, we're kind of counterposing some of the iliopsoas things that we did. Take a couple more breaths and we'll just switch sides. You can just unwind, extend your right leg back out. Bring left foot across the right thigh with your left foot flat, right leg active. So we twist to the left now. Left hand is behind you. You can either hug your left knee or bring your right elbow outside of it. Heart is lifted, spine is straight, shoulders are relaxed. Rotate back around, extend your left leg out, give your legs a little wiggle. And then just like that, we're gonna roll onto our backs. Hug your knees into your chest. It's a really nice counter pose, right? Totally shortening iliopsoas here. And just rock side to side if that feels good to you. So our final front hip opener this morning is going to be bridge pose. And I'd like you to bring big toes to touch each other, but separate the heels. Whatever arm position makes you happy, you're welcome to do. So whether you keep your hands flat or you interlace your fingers underneath you, makes no difference. But here's what I'd like you to do before you lift. Push your low back into the mat and poke your pubic bone towards the ceiling. We're already setting up to lengthen one last time and maintain that pelvic tilt as you lift your hips, driving through your heels and the big toe and little toe sides of your feet. Really trying to poke your pubic bone up towards the ceiling, keeping your pelvis tilted. Your buns are tight here. 3 more slow breaths, rib cage is lifted. On your next exhale, start to lower back down. Hug your knees in and rock side to side. And then keeping right knee hugged into the chest, we'll extend the left leg out. So Pavanamuktasana. This pose is good for a lot of things. In this case, it's releasing right side of the low back and right glute. Obviously, it's a counter pose for your right front hip. Sanskrit name translates as wind relieving pose. So this is really good for your digestion and elimination. So take a couple of deep, slow breaths here, just really hugging the right knee into the chest. And then I'm going to encourage you to just experiment with this a little bit. Hug the knee a little closer to the midline, a little farther outside the body. So just kind of moving it around, perhaps, as you're hugging it in. Because if you're getting a deep squeeze here, it's almost like you're massaging your psoas. If it's uncomfortable, don't do that. Take a couple more breaths. And then just bring the left knee up to meet the right knee and extend your right leg all the way out. Just hug your left knee in nice and deep. So now here we are on the left side, releasing left side of the low back. Lengthening left glute. Shortening left psoas, helping our digestion and elimination. And then let's experiment with a little bit of movement with the left knee. So maybe pulling it a little closer towards the body, a little farther away from the body, maybe moving it around. Again, don't do it if it's uncomfortable. And then we're going to bring the right knee back up to meet the left knee. Side to side rock. And then just finalizing with a little gentle twist here. Keep your knees bent and together. Drop them both to the right. Let the left arm open out to the left. Let your head turn to the left. And I want you to begin to relax your body. So as you're in this super gentle reclined twist, check in and make sure your face is soft, your spine is long, your hips are relaxed, your shoulders are relaxed. No tension in the jaw, no tension in the fingers or toes. Just soften and breathe. One more deep inhale and exhale here. On your next inhale, bring those legs back up. And then as you exhale, you can gently drop them over to the left. Let that right arm open out to the right. Head turns to the right if that's okay with your neck. And again, you soften. You just let your body relax. Check in, make sure there's not anywhere that you're gripping or tightening. One more breath. On your next inhale, bring your knees back up, hug them in. Reach down, grab the outside edges of your feet or ankles. Explore a little movement here and you're a happy baby. So you did a lot of hip stuff. A little bit for the back of the hips since it's so intimately connected to the front of the hips, but primarily front. So this is a good place to kind of explore, move around, see if there's anything else you need. And then when you're ready, bring your feet down to the mat. Let the soles of the feet touch and just let your knees drop open. We're just going to be passive here for a moment. Just really kind of allowing this final, like inner thigh, front hip, all the good yummy stuff to just relax and stretch. And then to make sure that the back is comfortable before we transition into our final pose of Shavasana, let's lengthen low back muscles. So you've spent most of your morning tilting your pelvis back. I'm going to ask you to do it again. As you inhale, you're just pressing your low back into the mat. You'll feel your pubic bone kind of scoop up again. But now it should be pretty easy to do. And you're just going to hold it while you breathe. Low back muscles are lengthening right here. And interestingly enough, your iliopsoas, while most often thought of as a hip flexor, it attaches to the back as well. It's also a spinal stabilizer. So you're giving it this last little kiss. On your next exhale, release. Let the curve come back into your spine. Begin to extend your legs. Separate the feet a little or a lot, whatever feels good to you. Make sure your glutes are relaxed. Let the feet just flop. Make sure your spine is lengthened, your neck is lengthened, your shoulders are relaxing down the back. Your hands are below the shoulders with the palms facing up. Close your eyes, soften your face, soften your jaw. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Sigh it out your mouth. And then let go, not only of any remaining tension in the body, but let go of control of your breath. In other words, completely relax here. Your body knows how to do it. This is a very familiar pose. It is, as you often hear me say, the most important pose of our practice, Shavasana, corpse pose. So as everything starts to settle down and relax and soften, including the breath, I'd like you to just bring your awareness back to your hips. And as you feel into that area, I want you to focus right now on what feels good. I know for me, sometimes that definition of good means an absence of sensation. It means everything is loose and open and I feel nothing because there's no tightness. It might feel different for you. The psoas is sometimes called in ancient literature the seat of the soul, interestingly enough. And so as you focus on what feels good in the front of the hips, I'd like you to also consider what feels good for your soul, that deepest, highest consciousness of yourself. There's a quote of immense popularity, actually, that says, whatever feeds your soul, do that. I'd like you to consider what it is that feeds your soul. Consider if you feed it enough. Consider how you might feed it more. And then perhaps consider the purpose of your soul, or what is your soul's purpose? What are you personally here to do? And then how are you fulfilling that? In the same way that what feels good for your hips is good for your hips, what feels good for your soul is good for your soul. And then just start to feel back into your body on the mat. Noticing the effects of your physical practice, of your relaxation. Begin to deepen your breath, and you can start to bring gentle movement back. Maybe fingers and toes, or you can flutter your eyelids. Start deepening your breath, and on your next deep inhale, spread your fingers and toes. Exhale with a soft sigh as you relax them. Next deep inhale, just stretch. You can stretch however you want to, just lengthen out, and then exhale again with a sigh. Relax. Bringing your feet flat onto the floor with your knees bent. And then if you feel like you'd like to, you can even hug your knees in. Let's roll over to the right side if you're comfortable there, and just pause for a moment. And when you feel ready, use your left hand in front of your chest and just gently press yourself up into a seated position. Just like at the beginning of class, we find whatever seated posture allows us a straight, aligned spine. with as little effort as possible. Make sure our head feels balanced on top of our spines. And this morning we're going to do Chandra Bharana, which is a lunar breath. It's a left nostril breath. But we're going to do it so that we're inhaling through the left side and exhaling through the right side every single breath. So with your right hand, you can either tuck the first two fingers underneath the pad of the thumb, so you get this sort of little, it's Vishnu Mudra. So the first two fingers would rest underneath the nostrils. Your right thumb blocks the right nostril ring and pinky block the left. And you can just go back and forth. If that feels awkward, the first two fingers of your right hand rest in the center of your forehead, and you still use the same right thumb and right ring and pinky finger to block the left nostril. Either position is fine. You don't need to count your breath, but I would love for you to make it really slow and long and deep and full. No rushing through the breath work. Your left hand can be palm up or palm down, or if you are so inclined to do a mudra, you're welcome to do that. Just take a deep breath in through both nostrils. Exhale completely through both. And then remember, you're going to inhale through the left side and exhale through the right side every single time. As you finish the breath you're on, just let your right hand rest down. Just allow your breathing to be normal and just pause for a moment. And then slowly bring the palms of the hands together in front of the heart onto the mudra prayer position. Taking a moment in gratitude, always gratitude. There's always so much to be grateful for. This morning, perhaps gratitude for your practice today and gratitude for the practice as a whole. Gratitude for the breath that you are breathing right this moment, and for the beautiful new day and week that spreads out before you. Take one more huge inhale. Exhale with a happy sigh. We bring our palms together at our foreheads, and this reminds us just to be present, to pay attention, to see beauty everywhere. We bring our palms together in front of our mouths, and it reminds us to speak our truth, but with kindness, so that it can be heard. And we bring our palms together in front of our hearts, and this reminds us to keep our hearts open, so that we can always, always come from a place of compassion and love and include ourselves in that. Thank you guys for joining me. It's always an honor. Namaste.